You're listening to a special interview segment for the official podcast for WrestlingNewsSource.com.
Okay, folks, now we're going to take a little break in the show. We're going to be joined by former WWE and TNA wrestler and current New Japan Pro Wrestling star, Lance Hoyt. Lance, welcome to the show.
Hey, guys. How y'all doing tonight?
Doing pretty good. How are you?
Very good, man.
Awesome. So we find out you're currently getting ready to leave the country to go out and wrestle in Japan for New Japan Pro Wrestling. You getting excited about that?
Yeah, man. I've only been home for a week. I was gone for 2 months out of the country, Japan and Australia, and then I got back home for a week, and now I'm right back out on the road. So,
wow, we just happened to catch you at just the right time for that. So we certainly do appreciate you coming on. What type of reaction do you get from the fans just due to your size? Because you're 6'8", you are a big guy. So when you go to Japan, what type of reaction do you usually get?
You know, it's a really good reaction. You know, I think it's kind of what's allowed me to flourish in Japan. You know, when I first arrived, he's now Tenzai with WWE, but, you know, he was Giant Bernard in New Japan. He was a year and a half, most title defense world tag team champion that New Japan had ever had and things like that. You know, so he and I were the two big gaijins in the company, and he's now gone back to WWE. He's Tenzai, like I said before, and so I'm kind of the only big gaijin in the whole company. So it's actually a lot of fun. It's kind of cool, and it's a great place to be and a great place to work. That's for sure.
Very nice. I bet you get a lot of nice reactions from the fans.
What's it feel like for a guy to go over to New Japan and to win a match against a guy like Makabe or someone of that stature? Just like, how do you feel after going through something like that?
You know, Makabe, I'm glad you brought him up. It's probably my favorite opponent in all of New Japan Pro Wrestling. He's one of the first guys I got to step in the ring with when I started working with that company. I've had many battles with him in the G1 Climax, the New Japan Cup, the tag team matches, the just, hardcore knockout, teeth out singles matches at pay-per-views and things like that. And, back and forth, he and I have gone. He's won some, I've won some, and it's been a cool rivalry, and he's one of my favorite opponents in Japan. He's basically the Stone Cold of Japan.
Very nice. You grew up in Texas, so in Texas, obviously football is a big deal. Baseball is a big deal. You were actually a quarterback in college football. But what caused the transition from going from college football to becoming a professional wrestler?
Stop playing football.
Got tired of it?
No, I didn't get tired of it. I loved football, and I played all through high school, and I attempted to get into college ball. I played for 3 years too at a university in Brownwood, Texas, called Howard Payne University, and then I transferred over to what is now Texas State. It was Southwest Texas when I was there. I was on the teams for 3 years, and my final year at Southwest Texas, I was a very clean-cut kid. I did my thing. I partied out on 6th Street and things like that, but I really didn't drink. I didn't do any drugs. I didn't do any of that craziness. I just liked to dance and dress different and act a little different and things like that. And, my coaches were very weird. They wanted the clean-cut All-American quarterback kid, and I just wasn't the clean-cut All-American looking kid. I was in the sense that, like I said, I didn't do all the drugs and all the drinking and things like that, which there was a ton of that going on, within the team and things like that. But their image was their reality. What they thought they saw was what they thought I was. And, I think that just got real fast. And, it was a political game, which that's, everywhere in anything that you get a part of. And, one day I was in the practice squad, and one of the coaches was giving me a hard time. And, what happened at your last school? They wouldn't let you take your bong on your field. And I'm like, what? Where the hell did that come from? I was like, I don't smoke anything. And you're asking me if I got in trouble because they wouldn't let me take my bong on the field. And so from that point, it was kind of like, all right, this really isn't going to go anywhere with football. Unfortunately, I got out of football. I was still in school. I ended up graduating from Southwest Texas back in 2002. I kind of started my wrestling career at that point, and, I just decided that was where I really wanted to focus on. It was something I enjoyed. It was athletic. It was entertaining. It was everything that I like to be a part of, and, it was a lot of fun when I first started.
Was the love there since you were younger? As a kid, did you gravitate towards pro wrestling, or is it something you found kind of later in life?
I found it later in life because they really, in Hearn, Texas, where I grew up, we didn't have wrestling on TV until WCW was on TNT, and whatnot. And, Nitro came on, and I was a big WCW fan, and, Sting was the reason I started watching wrestling because I was big into the movie The Crow, and he just donned that Crow persona, and, it really captured my attention back then. So I was probably, at 16 or 17 when I first started watching wrestling. I didn't get the opportunity like a lot of guys to grow up on it. But, from that point I was hooked, and, it was something I always watched. I made sure every Monday night I was either watching it or recording it so I could watch it later. And, it was something that became a part of my ritual, and everybody knew that I was a big pro wrestling fan, even though I was playing football and things like that. I caught it a little bit later in life, but, it done me good, and I became a huge fan of the business in every aspect.
How were you approached by TNA? What was sort of your reaction for them expressing interest in wanting to sign you?
I started wrestling in 2000. I was doing just the Texas independent scene. There was a great company in Dallas, Texas called PCW that ran a weekly television show in Dallas. And then I started traveling to TNA. Basically, my main story was I met one of the cage dancers. Her name was Lollipop, and she was at an autograph show in Dallas. And, we just hit it off as friends, talked, this and that. And she's like, well, give me a tape. I'll give it to somebody. I was like, all right, cool. So I got a tape together, a picture, sent it with her. And sure enough, she actually gave it to Bob Ryder, who at the time, was a lot more hands-on with everything that was going on as far as new talent and stuff. And TNA used their Explosion program kind of as their, chance to look at new talent, young talent, things of that nature. And I got my first opportunity to go and do an Explosion match, which my first match was with Don Harris, who was kind of the guy who ran the whole backstage area, made sure, the building was set up and everything was good to go. We barely had 2 minutes to talk about anything. He had to do his stuff. We went out there, we had the match. It came off perfect, just like he wanted. That was my first introduction into TNA. I did a few more tryout matches, and then I was headed up to do what was going to be my fourth tryout match with TNA. And when I arrived in Nashville, I guess they tried to contact me, but I wasn't around my email to see what they were trying to say. But I showed up at the building, and my name was actually on the pay-per-view board that evening, working with Kid Cash in the tag team tournament that they were putting together. And, or actually people were saying congratulations before I even walked in the building, and I had no clue what they were talking about. And then when I saw the board with my name on it, it had me on the pay-per-view, and worked my first match with Cash that night, and walked from the arena to backstage. And Jerry Jarrett, who was still a major part of the company at the time, stood up and shook my hand, said, great job. And about 10 minutes later, I got approached by Bob Ryder, who said, hey, would you like to be a part of the company on a permanent basis? I was like, hell yeah.
Kind of hard to say no to something like that.
Yeah, especially for a kid who's been, just working hard and struggling. I had very small contacts with WWE at the time, so, it was a situation where, it was a prime opportunity, and I decided to take it,
Mm-hmm. I'm sure you had, a lot of fun working in TNA. How or where was Hoytomania born?
Hoytomania was really born from the fans. I'd like to believe I just would go out there and bust my butt, and I worked hard, and I caught the fans' attention. We had very regular fans at the Impact Zone in Orlando, and there was just a group of people that made sure that they were the first ones at the building every time, so they could stand right on the rail, and they just donned the whole Hoytomania thing. Started making they went out and paid money and made T-shirts for themselves that said Hoytomania across the front and big Hoyt across the back, and we're holding up signs, and to the point where they were actually having to get them to hold the signs down because they're blocking the view of other people. And it was something born from the fans. It wasn't anything that I really created or the company really created. It was just they loved it. They for some reason loved me, and it was a great relationship for a little while.
What was your first reaction to seeing all that?
It started slow, and then it started to build, and you'd see the signs, and then I think, it really kind of dawned on me when I showed up, and there was, about 15 people all in the front row, and all I had the shirt on that said Hoytomania on it, and I was like, holy crap, where'd these kids come from? This is awesome, So it was a lot of fun. It was a good time, because TNA was in a lot of transitional points. We'd gone from Fox Sports and it was like a 3-month hiatus where we did not have television. Everything was being produced for the internet. We were doing monthly pay-per-view still at the time, but we were in between our Fox Sports Network and the first Spike television show that, we aired on way back in the day. And, it was a lot of fun. It was one of those times when, TNA just really simplified everything they were doing. They were focusing on the wrestling. The names hadn't really started to pour in yet, so that the guys who were the homegrown talent were getting a lot of opportunities, myself included. So, it was a great time, just to have the fan base behind me and to work hard and, get something from that at the same time.
What were your feelings on the whole Rock and Rave infection and teaming with Jimmy Rave? Was it a good time? Was it fun? Just your feelings in general about it.
The Rock and Rave infection to me was a lot of fun. And Jimmy is probably, and I'll say this to the time I'm out of this business, he's probably one of the smoothest guys I've ever seen in the ring. His transition from move A to move B, from this to that, is probably the smoothest I've ever seen from anybody. Initially the Rock and Rave was just kind of, I'd been teaming with Christie, and then they talked about bringing Jimmy Rave into the company and tagging us. And at first I was kind of doing the same thing I'd been doing, and he came in and he was just the normal Jimmy Rave. And then we showed up one day, and Glenn Gilberti, Disco Inferno, comes up to us before TV. We were taping 3 television shows for that week or whatever. We were there for 2 days, but we're taping 3 shows. And comes up and says, "Hey guys, did you hear?" Like, hear what, Glenn? Like, you guys are on all 3 shows. You have backstage segments. You have in-ring mic stuff. We're all like, "Oh my God, awesome! We're getting our opportunity here." He goes, "Yeah, you hear your new gimmick?" We're like, "What new gimmick?" We hadn't been told anything, and we showed up, at TV that day at the studio ready to go. And he goes, "Yeah." He goes, "You guys, you never heard that game Guitar Hero?" Like, "Yeah." He's like, "Well, you guys all think you're rock stars, but you only play Guitar Hero." And we're like, "Oh my God, give us a gun and shoot our careers now." But, what the thing that they did do is, we said, "Okay, if we're going to do this, can we do what we want to do with it? Can we make this our own?" And they said, "Absolutely." And that was the cool part about it, was they were like, "Do whatever you think would be done in this situation." And so, that week, we weren't prepared, but we just, I was like, well, if I'm a rock star, I wouldn't wrestle in tights. I would wrestle in jeans and boots and stuff like that, and wear a tank top and whatnot. So we did that first set of tapings because we weren't really ready for it. But then when we came back, Jimmy donned kind of the glamour rock look, and Christie's she's just rock star as she is, and then I decided to don kind of the Slash-esque gimmick with the hat and the sunglasses and the tattered jeans, and I just would just tie my boots around my ankles and leave them flapped open. It was a lot of fun, and I thought we had a lot of momentum going. A lot of people kind of got behind it, whether they hated us or liked it or didn't. I think it's one of those tag teams in TNA that if they'd have really given it an opportunity to shine, it would have been much more than it was. I think initially it was just seen as a comedy element, but I think between Jimmy's amazing ability to wrestle and, I would like to believe my ability to wrestle, it was a great tag team. We had some amazing matches with Motor City Machine Guns and LAX and things like that. And, I know those 3 teams included opened up Destination X one time, and we got to the back, and D'Lo Brown was like, "That's how you start a pay-per-view. You guys set the tone. You guys did the work." That was awesome. It was a really cool feeling to know that all 3 teams had gone out there and worked so hard and busted their butts, that they were getting some appreciation for it. I felt, and I think Jimmy felt, that if given the time and opportunity, I think the Rock and Rave infection could have been a much bigger deal than it was, and more than just a comedy element that initially it had become.
Very cool. Which do you prefer as a wrestler? Do you like something like the Rock and Rave infection where you get to really focus on a character and a gimmick, or do you prefer how things are in say New Japan, where so much of your in-ring work is what speaks for you as itself?
Yeah, even in New Japan, I'm the American Psycho, Lance Archer. It is a full-on character. It has come out. Now I initially was donning kind of the rockabilly cowboy hat, and I've got my my leather jacket and whatnot. And now I've got the American flag in black and white painted across the back of that. I have a old school, Nazi style motorcycle helmet that's all spiked out and everything. Coming out, I'm kicking the rails, I'm spitting at the fans, I'm wetting my hair and slapping it on the people. It's a full-on character. It's not just come out and wrestle, which I'd like to believe my wrestling ability has backed that up. But at the same time, it's there's a full character there. So I've always enjoyed being more of a character. Actually having an opportunity to think about what that person would do, what that person would be, how would Lance Rock be in the Rock and Raven faction? How would Lance Archer, the American Psycho, be in New Japan Pro Wrestling or wherever I wrestle at the time? So I enjoy that character focus more so than just kind of being me. Hoyt Mania was fun because it was a large extension of who I was. The fans kind of created that, and I got to feed off of that. But, yeah, I like having that character to focus on and think about.
Very nice. Shortly thereafter, you left TNA, went over to ECW. You trained in FCW for a while. What were your impressions of FCW?
FCW was a great place for me. It was one of those situations where initially it was brought up. There was a lot of people that were behind me, and they were like, "Man, you don't need to be there," blah, blah, blah. And I was like, it's okay. There's a lot of good people there. Dusty Rhodes, who was always kind of a supporter of mine, I think he was probably a spearhead into the reason I actually got my job. He was there, and he's amazing on the mic. He's just one of those guys that you're just captured by everything he says. And that's kind of what he was working with us all on there. Dr. Tom Pritchard, Norman Smiley, Steve Kern, all these guys. Even Billy Kidman, who was in and out because he had a major role on the road. These guys were just tremendous in what they did and how they helped us. For me, it was a great opportunity to transition from what I'd been doing into the WWE style, learning what they were looking for, learning what they wanted to see from their talent on their television show and things like that. I think it would have been much more difficult if I'd have gone just straight from where I'd been into WWE's product and gone to cold, because I think I would have made a lot of more mistakes on their television program initially if I hadn't had the opportunity to work in FCW and kind of get an idea of where WWE wanted me to be.
Did you feel like you had more freedom as far as you putting together your match? I mean, like move sets and things like that, as opposed to WWE? Is a lot more dictated to you in WWE, or is that a misconception?
It just depends on the situation, I think, and I think that's in all the business. It depends on the situation. WWE wasn't. A lot of people think that you walk in and they just go, okay, this is going to be move A, B, C, D, and E, and get to F, and it really depends on you and where you're at and how well you can do things, who you're working with. Obviously, if you're working with somebody they trust, they're going to leave a lot of that into their hands and what they're doing. So there was a lot of opportunity to put together what we wanted, and then the agents and the people around us would help tweak it and move it back towards where they felt like it needed to be, or if there were certain things that they felt had to be a part of the match and the situation and the story that we had to get in and had to have happen. Then that's when they would become a little more hands-on as to what they wanted to see happen in comparison to just allowing us to do whatever we wanted at any time.
Very cool. You were actually in WWE SmackDown 2011. Are you a fan of video games, or did you buy a bunch of copies for your friends and say, hey, let's see what you got?
No, I did not buy a bunch of copies for my friends. I let them go buy it themselves. I've got one copy myself. It's for an Xbox, and I don't even have an Xbox. I'm not a big gamer. I just never have been. It was real cool. I played it a few times, and mostly against friends and friends who had kids who were big into the games and had the games themselves. And they go, "Oh yeah, this is Lance. He's in the game." And they're like, "No, he's not." I'm like, "Yeah, I am. That's me." And they're going, "That's not you." And I'm like, "Yeah, I promise, kid. It was me." And I've played against a few kids like that, and that's been kind of fun. But as far as the video games and the ability to play them, I'm horrible.
And when you got moved up to WWE from FCW, what were you touched on sort of how the matches are formed and stuff like that. A lot of people say they form bonds with a bunch of wrestlers while they're on the road. You're traveling so much. Who were some of the guys that you kind of just bonded with?
Tyler Rex was actually probably my best friend on the road at the time. Also Byron Saxton. we were really good friends. We still are. I still talk to both those guys periodically. Probably those are the two main ones. Obviously, when Kurt and I started traveling or were working together, we were traveling together more and became better friends. So those were probably the main group of guys. The Dude Busters, they were guys. But these are a lot of the guys that I worked with and trained with while I was at FCW, and then we were all kind of up around the same time. So it was kind of a cool situation for us to be around each other and work around each other. And I think that's kind of how it always is. The guys that, in and around each other and train with each other are the ones that kind of stick to each other when they start traveling and get on the road. It's very rare that, if you just come up and you randomly start just traveling or being around different people. And then relationships change up there too, because sometimes people are in, sometimes people are out. Sometimes you're asked to go do other things, so you have to find other people to travel with and do other things with. So, but yeah, like I said, Rex, Byron Saxton, the Dude Busters, Kurt Hawkins, those guys are the main ones that I travel with most of the time.
I asked this as a fan, and I don't mean to put you on the spot, but
it's okay.
Okay. As an American wrestling fan, I know New Japan Pro Wrestling has, their YouTube page that they upload a lot of matches to, but how can American fans support guys like yourself who are going to Japan to wrestle, or, just wrestling in Japan in general without like, what is the best things to do for us to support? Because it's hard to follow a Japanese product very closely without doing it through, nefarious means. Like, we don't want to feel guilty about like pirating things. Like, what's the best thing we can do to support you guys in Japan?
We're talking with them now about that a lot. The new owners of the company, the Bushy Road Card Company, they're wanting to expand New Japan's business a little beyond Japan. In retrospect, right now, New Japan Pro Wrestling is the second largest company in the world based on number of fans that come to the events, number of merchandise sold, number of viewers they have on television in Japan, number of pay-per-view purchases that are bought through Japan. And for the opportunity for them to expand, it's something that we've been discussing. They're bringing in more American talent. Perry Smith is coming in the September tour. Will arrive on Thursday, and he and I start tagging together as part of Suzuki-gun. And for American fans, it's always kind of been for us. We've gotten on them. There is a English Facebook page that you can become friends with and follow and have them, something that, and they periodically update, and they use, English, the English page. Yeah. Basically they update it in English, updates, and they put pictures and things like that. They don't do it as often as their main page. And we tell them, there's the at New Japan 1972 is their Twitter account, and you can flood them with requests to see more English produced products and things of that nature. And we've also pushed for them to do an English web page so that the English fans can get on there and possibly purchase merchandise or follow their wrestlers. There is a website, I have to look for it, but it's like puroisufan.com or something like that. I'll look for it right now. But it's an all-English website that actually is very up-to-date with everything that's going on with New Japan Pro Wrestling. So, the best ways is just to check the stuff out that is on YouTube, because it's probably about the only way you're going to get to see any New Japan Pro Wrestling right now. We are pushing for them to put more out there and to make it more available to fans all around the world. They tampered with, an iPay-per-view situation the last tour I was a part of, and we're hoping that that's something they'll start doing more often, so that more fans around the world will get an opportunity to see New Japan Pro Wrestling and not just, what is produced in Japan and, like you said, what is pirated off the internet. Because, we want the American fans, we want the English-speaking fans to be able to see and enjoy and understand exactly how good New Japan Pro Wrestling is and is becoming, because it is really growing. The talent that is there. We just, I just got through with the G1 Climax, and there was almost 15,000 people sold out at Ryogoku, the sumo hall, and it was just beyond electric feel. MVP and I had the opening match, and it was hot, from opening match to the end of the night when Carl Anderson, who was the Machine Gun Carl Anderson, only the second American ever to be in the finals of the G1 Climax, was a part of that with Okada, and they just tore the house down. It was amazing what they were able to do, and it's kind of sad for us as American fans to think that, there's a lot of American fans that would love to see this wrestling and just be in awe of what is produced out there. So, we're hoping that it expands soon.
Yeah, I mean, it's something we definitely get excited about. I think sometimes like internet fans get like a bad rep as like people who just want to pirate stuff, but like we want to support wrestling and
Right.
give wrestling our money. We just, sometimes it's very difficult.
Resources aren't there.
Yeah.
So
that website I was telling you, if you want to check information out, it's Puro, Puro, Resu, Resu, fan.com. And it's an all-English website, but it follows and gives you all up-to-date information as to what's going on with New Japan Pro Wrestling.
Very nice. And, of course, to follow you on Twitter, it would be at Lance Hoyt. You are Twitter verified, so don't fall for the at Vance Archer that's floating up on the search bar. So at Lance Hoyt, do you have a Facebook fan page that people can check out as well?
I don't. I just have my page. It's Lance Hoyt on Facebook, and I get a lot of I get a lot of friend requests. But if I don't know them or I don't have a reason to know them, that's kind of sounding kind of stuck up. But that's just the reality of it. I don't add them. I don't have 5,000 friends on my Facebook page. I probably have 1,000 if I'm lucky, and I'm amazed that I even have that because I'm very selective on who I add. But if you can follow it and you can see it, you can definitely check that out too.
Very nice. Well, thank you very much for joining us on our show. Good luck. Have a very safe trip whenever you head out to Japan. We certainly do appreciate you coming on to our show.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for having me on, guys.
All right. Have a good night.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you.
Bye-bye.